Most men don't get rejected because they lack confidence. They get rejected because they approach intimacy in a way that creates pressure instead of connection. The problem isn't desire, it's delivery. When the approach feels heavy or demanding, she instinctively pulls away. But when the approach is emotionally aligned, something different happens. She doesn't withdraw, she moves closer. Let's start with something most people won't say out loud. Men are not actually afraid of closeness itself. What they fear is rejection. The moment they make a move and everything shifts. The tone changes, the energy drops, and what felt promising suddenly collapses. That fear quietly shapes how they behave, often making them rush or overcompensate. But there is another way. A way to communicate interest in intimacy without sounding needy, without creating discomfort, and without triggering resistance. It's not about manipulation or control, it's about understanding how emotional attraction actually forms. Because women don't decide intimacy through logic, they arrive at it through emotional experience. Here's a truth most men miss. It's rarely intimacy itself that is rejected. It's the feeling attached to how it's offered. If the emotional atmosphere feels right, the answer develops naturally. If it feels forced or uncertain, the door closes immediately. Your role is not to push the door open, but to create the kind of moment where it opens on its own. Now let's go deeper into how female attraction actually works. Many men make the same mistakes. They move too fast, they speak too directly, they act from nervous energy, or they try to escalate before any real emotional connection is built. The result is predictable resistance. Female attraction doesn't operate like male attraction. For most men, attraction is instant and visual. It's immediate. But for women, it develops in layers. It builds over time through emotional safety, context, curiosity, and shared experience. That's why a woman might feel neutral at first, and then days or weeks later feel deeply drawn in. Nothing changed externally. The internal emotional buildup finally clicked. Once you understand this, your entire approach changes. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop trying to force clarity. Instead, you focus on building the emotional conditions where desire naturally grows. The most important principle is this: you never force a direct ask. Direct pressure kills attraction. When you ask too bluntly, you turn something emotional into something transactional. And transactions create hesitation, not desire. But when you frame connection as an emotional invitation rather than a demand, everything shifts. She no longer feels pushed into a decision. She feels like she's stepping into one on her own. And when a woman feels ownership over her choice, resistance drops dramatically. Think about it like this. Whenever someone tries to sell you something aggressively, your instinct is to step back. Even if you were interested, pressure ruins the feeling. Intimacy works the same way. The moment it feels like a request she must answer, the emotional flow breaks. Instead of triggering her conscious resistance, the goal is to speak to emotional intuition. You don't ask for a moment, you create one. Feelings guide her, not interrogation. This is where emotional invitation becomes powerful. You build a space where she feels comfortable, understood, and curious at the same time. There are 3 emotional switches that must be active for intimacy to ever feel natural: safety, trust, and anticipation. Safety means she doesn't feel judged, rushed, or emotionally cornered. It comes from your calm presence, your ability to stay grounded, steady, and unreactive even when the dynamic is uncertain. Trust is built through consistency. When your behavior matches your words, when you respect boundaries without frustration, and when you don't punish honesty or hesitation, she begins to relax around you. Anticipation is the invisible spark. It's the tension between what is happening and what could happen. It's created through patience, subtlety, and restraint. Without anticipation, everything feels flat. With it, even simple moments feel charged. Most men focus only on attraction and ignore these deeper layers. They try to impress, entertain, or dominate attention, but without safety, trust, and anticipation, attraction never fully converts into emotional openness. Another powerful dynamic is what can be called the soft withdrawal effect. Instead of constantly leaning in and escalating, you occasionally step back, not emotionally disconnecting, but removing pressure. This subtle shift changes everything. When pressure disappears, so does resistance. She no longer feels like something is being pursued or taken from her. Instead, she experiences space. And in that space, curiosity grows. She begins to lean forward on her own. This is the turning point most men never reach. Because the moment she starts leaning in voluntarily, the dynamic flips. It's no longer about convincing. It becomes about mutual pull, and that is where genuine connection replaces rejection entirely. Let me show you what this actually looks like in real time so you can understand how all of this comes together in an actual moment. Imagine you're sitting next to a woman, the energy is right, the conversation is effortless. There's chemistry in the air that doesn't need to be forced. This is the point where most men make a critical mistake. They try to escalate too directly. They move in closer, increase touch, lean in for a kiss, or push the moment forward too quickly. And what usually happens? Even if she's interested, something inside her tightens. She pulls back slightly, not because the attraction isn't there, but because the shift felt abrupt. It created pressure instead of flow. Now compare that with a different approach. Same moment, same chemistry. But instead of moving forward aggressively, you do the opposite. You subtly lean back, you pause, you briefly look away. You create a small pocket of space between you. And in that space, something changes. The pressure disappears. And the moment pressure disappears, awareness replaces it. She becomes aware of herself, of you, and of the connection that's already forming. A quiet internal question appears. Why did he pull back? Is he not interested anymore? And without thinking about it consciously, she starts to close the distance. She leans in. She adjusts her body toward you. She may even initiate touch herself. This is the soft withdrawal effect in action. Not rejection, not games, just emotional balance. You're showing that you're not chasing the moment, you're allowing it. And that calmness makes her feel safe enough to move forward on her own. Now, here's where things go deeper. Because once attraction is stable, the next layer is anticipation, the strongest driver of emotional desire. This leads to a more subtle but powerful approach, the implanted thought shift. Instead of asking for anything, you guide her attention through emotionally suggestive statements that shape how she experiences the moment. For example, I really like the way our energy feels together. You're surprisingly easy to be around. There's something about your presence that feels really natural. None of these statements request intimacy. None of them push for an outcome, but all of them quietly direct attention toward emotional closeness. What's happening underneath is important. You're not introducing new ideas into her mind. You're giving language to feelings she's already sensing but hasn't fully recognized yet. And when someone puts your unspoken feelings into words, something powerful happens, internal alignment. She hears it and thinks, yes, that's exactly how this feels. That agreement creates emotional synchronization, and synchronization is what deepens attraction. There's also a psychological mechanism at play called priming. When certain words like connection, natural, energy, and comfort are repeated in a context, they begin to shape how she interprets the entire interaction, not as manipulation, but as focus. Her attention starts organizing itself around emotional closeness rather than neutral conversation. Now, this brings us to another critical layer. A woman only fully opens into intimacy when she feels safe inside her feminine state. That means softness, emotional openness, trust, and ease. But she can't access that state if the man is tense, anxious, overly sexual, or trying too hard to control the outcome. That energy disrupts her internal balance and pulls her into overthinking instead of feeling. What she responds to instead is masculine calm, and masculine calm is often misunderstood. It's not silence. It's not emotional distance. It's not detachment. It's grounded presence. It's a man who isn't performing, isn't rushing, and isn't mentally chasing an outcome. He's simply present in the moment without anxiety about where it leads. When a woman senses that kind of steadiness, something shifts internally. Her guard lowers. Her body relaxes. Her emotional defenses soften. And in that state, connection feels safe instead of uncertain. This is also why experienced men often appear more attractive. It's not experience itself, it's the absence of urgency. They're not trying to figure out what to do next. They're simply present in what's already happening. Now, here's where most men completely lose control of the moment without realizing it. They ask the wrong kind of question. If you ask for a direct yes, you automatically introduce the possibility of a no. And with that comes hesitation, analysis, and emotional resistance. But if you shift the question away from permission and toward emotion, everything changes. Instead of, do you want to come with me? You ask, do you feel comfortable here with me? Does this feel like it's moving too fast for you? Notice the difference. One demands a decision. The other invites awareness. Now she's not defending a choice. She's checking in with her own emotional state. And that is much easier to respond to, honestly. If she says she needs to slow down, nothing is lost. In fact, the pressure dissolves completely. You respond calmly, respect the moment, and continue being present. And often, that removal of pressure becomes the very thing that allows her to re engage more deeply later, because safety creates movement. Next comes another important layer: mirroring desire. A woman doesn't respond to intensity alone, she responds to calibrated reflection. If she leans in, you lean in slightly. If she softens her tone, you match it. If she increases eye contact, you hold it naturally. Not exaggerating, not underplaying, just matching. This creates subconscious confirmation. We are in sync. And humans are neurologically wired to trust synchronization. It signals understanding, emotional safety, and alignment. The same mechanism that builds connection in early development continues into adult intimacy. But the key is balance. Overdoing it feels overwhelming. Underdoing it feels dismissive. Precision creates connection. Finally, the moment everything comes together is not an ask, it's an acknowledgement. Instead of trying to escalate verbally, you simply reflect the moment. This feels really calm. It's actually nice being here like this. There's something really easy about this. Now, the focus is no longer on what comes next. The focus is on what is already happening. And when attention stays in the present moment, pressure disappears completely. Because intimacy isn't created through persuasion, it's created through shared emotional experience. And when the moment feels natural, safe, and mutual, nothing needs to be forced. It simply unfolds. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth: intimacy is never created through pressure, it is created through emotional alignment. When you stop chasing outcomes and start building safety, trust, and calm connection, the dynamic naturally shifts. Women don't respond to force or direct asking, they respond to how they feel in your presence. If the experience feels safe, natural, and unpressured, closeness develops on its own. The real shift is this: instead of trying to get a yes, you create an environment where a yes is no longer something to convince. It becomes something that happens naturally.